This is The Culture.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Cinema Wave Podcast. We are here to talk about the long in development Bob Marley One Love that stars Kingsley Ben-Adir and Lashana Lynch. I am one of your hosts. My name is Darian. I am joined this time by Liz Seiko.
Hi.
And also Michael Peniston.
Hello, everybody.
So I guess we can start with non-spoiler stuff first. This is a movie that Liz and I had an episode on the channel with Vinny where we did our most anticipated, or was it Zach? It was with Zach, the movies.
Yeah.
And all three of us had this on our most anticipated list. So this was like a big one for us. Michael, I don't know how you felt about it. Maybe we can start with you first and like what your anticipation level was for it, and then we can kind of go into our thoughts, because I have nothing from you in terms of like, were you excited for it, vice versa, whatever.
Yeah. I was excited going into this. I was very excited. I feel like biopics get a lot of hate, and I kind of enjoy them. I like seeing those actors throw themselves into those roles and how they're done. So yes, I was very excited about this. I love Bob Marley. Reggae music. It needed some light to be shown on. Yeah, but I saw the movie, and it was that.
Michael did not like this movie.
Yes.
So I don't want to go into spoilers yet.
Okay.
But your first general reaction, I think it's just raining.
Yeah.
For all the people that are listening, it's raining. So your overall thoughts in the beginning initially, broad strokes, you weren't a huge fan of the movie.
Yeah, broad strokes, I was not a fan. There are a couple of things I felt like could have been done better. I think that a little bit of light could have been shown more in certain areas. I won't touch yet on that. But yeah, just there could have. I was expecting a lot more. I don't know if my expectations were too high or if what was provided just wasn't enough, but I wasn't satisfied.
Yeah, no, that's fair. The movie has been in development since 2000. So it's a movie that like, and again, that's really just like a Bob Marley biopic has been in development for that many years, which makes sense. It took until his son Ziggy finally came on as a producer to like approve a lot of things that I think made a lot go through with it, because he was one of the producers on the film. I'm a huge Bob Marley fan. Like a lot of people like ask the question, they're like, if there's one artist that has passed away that you would want to see like before you die or something like that, who would you choose? And I would pick Bob Marley. So I'm like a huge Bob Marley fan. And I was always looking forward to eventually hearing how his story was told on screen. There's a question that I posed, and we don't have to get into the question right away, but what I walked away with it was asking myself the question, like, is Bob Marley's legacy too big to tell a story in this way? Like I understand. And I also am a fan of like biopics, because I like kind of seeing other actors' interpretations, and some of it becomes imitation, but some of it is like a genuine performance within playing that person. But Bob Marley's personality and legacy is so mainstream and large and like looming for decades, even after he died, that it's like, if you were gonna do a movie and it took you 25 years to make it, was this the product that you really wanted? And that's where I think a lot of our conversation is going to go into the spoiler talk. But overall, I thought it was a good movie. I just, like you, I was expecting a lot more. And I got, unfortunately, things that felt a little formulaic, but then other parts where I felt like the way that they decided to split the timelines and jump back and forth, the editing to me was the biggest standout of something I didn't like. I didn't like the structure of the movie. That was something that didn't sit totally well with me, but we'll go into scores obviously later and stuff. Liz, what are your overall first thoughts?
I had a good time watching this, honestly. I was vibing with like the music. I mean, I don't know too much going into this movie. I didn't know a lot about his personal life. I only knew about his music, that I listened to it, and like his overall message and kind of what he did for Jamaica. So this for me is a really good film for somebody that doesn't necessarily know a lot of his background, like his marriage, his family, like who his parents were, like did he have children, stuff like that. I think this is a very good stepping stone film. Also, like, I enjoyed the music. I thought it was done really well, how they incorporated it into showing us kind of how a lot of his music came to be. Plot wise, I think they had a lot of plot holes. I think that they just wanted to show highlights of his life, but they didn't know how to thread them together. I think the performances were great. I really enjoyed them, actually. For me, biopics, like you said, can often be not necessarily doing a good acting performance, but just trying to replicate the person's being. And I felt like there were moments where, yes, he was trying to be like Bob Marley, but also he was trying to have that emotional connection with his scene partners, which I bought. But overall, I mean, I was vibing.
Yeah. Did you have something or you want to go?
No.
Okay. There was one thing that you just talked about that because I really like Kingsley Ben-Adir, and this is his first time really getting a lot of light in terms of like a major starring role. He's in one of my favorite movies of all time, which is One Night in Miami, where he plays Malcolm X. And I think this felt a little bit more like an imitation and a mimic at times versus with Malcolm X. I felt like I just saw him as Malcolm X.
Okay.
But there's a moment in this film. This isn't major on plot, so this isn't like a major spoiler. But there's a moment where the other thing with this is that he goes back and forth. They go back and forth between Kingsley singing as Bob and then the actual studio track of Bob Marley, like they do in Bohemian Rhapsody with Rami Malek. So they go back and forth, which we talked a little bit about this off camera, but I don't know how I feel about that. Like, I wasn't a huge fan of the way they execute it in Bohemian Rhapsody, because sometimes it just didn't look right. Like, it works really well in the Radio Gaga scene because that scene is extravagant and it's supposed to be this showman version of Freddie. I mean, he's always a showman, but you know what I mean. With this, I actually felt more compelled in the scene where he was actually singing, and it didn't even bother me that he didn't sound like it wasn't a studio recording. It was just him sitting in his hotel room singing to his wife. And that was a moment for me that worked really well. And that was something where I felt more of what you were getting out of that performance with him. On the flip side, I do agree in terms of one performance. I thought Lashana Lynch was fantastic as Rita Marley. I had only seen her, I think, previously in Captain Marvel, which is not a very like meaty role by any means because we're talking about like things in the MCU. But a lot of people actually really liked her for her role in one of the James Bond films that she came in recently. It might have been Skyfall. But I thought she grounded the movie a lot. In the times especially where it kind of goes all over the place. I think, all the scenes with her and Kingsley together were the scenes that stuck out to me. Like, their relationship played out really well on screen. They had good chemistry together. And obviously the movie is called Bob Marley, One Love, so you're not going to focus so heavily on Rita. But the moments that they have with her, even the scene where they get into a fight in the alley, which we'll get into later, like, thought she completely outacted him in that scene. But we can get into that later. Anything else that stuck out to you before we go into spoiler stuff?
Yeah, I guess kind of. I guess this isn't really spoilers. There were a couple of set costume wardrobe things that were throwing me off, to be honest. And I don't know, granted, and this is even in my ballpark to really be like talking about, but like there were times where I personally really liked Kingsley's performance with this. I do. I thought that first, and this isn't a spoiler in any shape, in any way, but the first beat when you see him on screen or that first moment, like I was like, this isn't Kingsley. Like, oh my gosh, like this like doesn't even look like him. But there were times where I would look at him and I'd be like, oh, okay, they threw on some fake dreads on homie, and like you could tell. I don't know if that's just I've been around a lot of people with real dreads, and I don't know, but like that was just another like kind of nitpicky thing that I thought about just now. I'm thinking about it. His performance was really good though, and likewise with Rita, I agree with that. Nothing really else to get into other that isn't spoiler.
You want to go into spoilers?
Let's do spoilers.
I will say really quick, just bouncing off the dreadlock thing too. I actually was with my hairdresser the day I saw this movie beforehand. Then I said I was going to see this, and her first comment was, "Have you seen his dreads in the trailer?" And she works with hair, and like that's something where I was like, "Oh boy, that's not a good sign." And I do feel similarly. Some scenes it really. Because they're so prominent, like for Bob's image, and
I think they actually utilize people with real dreads in the movie at times.
Yeah,
Which is like,
which also the juxtapiposition, is like so much more drastic when you're
Yeah.
seeing. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so for the people that have not seen Bob Marley One Love, you heard our non-spoiler talks. Go see the movie. It's in theaters now. It's actually doing really, really well in the movies. I think it's already grossed like close to $70 million in less than a week, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are enjoying it. You guys can go see the movie, come back and check us out. We're going to talk about our spoiler thoughts in 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's get into it. So let's start with the development of this movie
Okay.
and the framework. This movie is directed by Ronaldo Marcus Green, who is coming off a major success with King Richard. Won Will Smith his first Oscar. I don't know if you guys saw that movie.
I did.
I really liked King Richard. Did you like it as well?
Yeah, I did too.
Michael?
I didn't see it.
You didn't see it. Okay, so he also reteamed with the screenwriter for that film, Zach Balin, who's one of 4 writers on this movie. Now, this is as soon as I saw this, before I saw the movie, I got very worried about this because there is such a thing as too many cooks in the kitchen, and there is such a thing as having such different viewpoints of the story you want to tell. And sometimes a screenwriter will come onto a project so early that they'll keep fundamental themes and things that they initially pitched, for the people that don't know this, and they'll still keep them on as a credited writer, but so much of the DNA of what their script initially was is gone from the script. So you have Terrence Winter, who has a very, very renowned career. He wrote The Sopranos, The Wolf of Wall Street, Boardwalk Empire, Vinyl, and Tulsa King. Then you have Frank E. Flowers, who the only major credit he has was a Peacock exclusive movie came out last year called Shooting Stars. Then you have Balin, who did King Richard. He also did Creed 3 and Gran Turismo. So he had 3 big movies in the last couple of years. Very interesting mix of movies as well. And then Ronaldo Marcus Green, who directed the movie, also came on and wrote this. And he hasn't written a script since his first feature, which also worried me because it felt like he's very good at directing, in my opinion, from what I've seen. He's done King Richard. He did the whole limited series We Own This City on HBO. He did Joe Bell, which was like a faith-based movie with Mark Wahlberg, and then he did Monsters of Men. So he's been doing a lot of things in recent years, and he's getting attached to a lot of big projects. Bob Marley is a big, you can't say it's IP, but it's like a major force and a major face. And the way that the 4 writers came together, or however the script winded up coming together, it feels very all over the place in terms of they didn't know how like you said, they didn't know how to thread it all together and make it work as a fundamental movie that wasn't going to feel formulaic to like other biopics. How did you feel about the script, Liz?
So when it started, I actually liked how they started it from the original, like, okay, Bob is trying to decide if he's going to do this concert in Jamaica, which I was like, great. We have like, because at first I was like, are they going to start from like him being born and then do a typical just like from the day you're born until the day you die? Or were they going to like catapult us right into his world? So I liked that they shoved us right in. But then all of a sudden it was like, wait, so he's not super famous yet? He hasn't made his like huge album, which like I was confused about because I thought that we were starting from the point of him already being a world known name. And so that right off, like when we started getting into the middle of him writing his, what is it? Exodus,
Yeah.
Right? Exodus album. I was like, wait, I thought that this had already happened. And then like the flashbacks for me were a little out of place. Like I think I appreciate a flashback, especially if you're going back to show the relationship between him and his wife blooming and showing like, okay, this is how they used to be versus how they are now. But I feel like they would just be like, we don't know what to do next. So let's cut back to when he was younger to show what it used to be like. So again, what I said before, I feel like they had points in his life that they wanted to touch on, but they really had no idea how to thread them all together. And so they were like, okay, to thread all these things together, let's do a flashback. Or we need to talk about this like dream sequence, fire with his father on a horse that they kept cutting through. Like, what was that? I don't understand it. I think the metaphor that they were going for went completely over my head personally. I don't know if Either of you can give any insight onto what you thought they were trying to do with that.
Do you have any idea?
Do you have any clue? Because I was literally like,
No.
why did they keep cutting to it? Every 15 minutes, it was like the kid running through fire. And I was like, what are we doing with this?
I have no idea.
Right?
I don't know why they cut it. I was also confused, likewise, with a couple of the flashbacks that you referenced. Personally, I don't think that, and this is a strong opinion to give off the top. But
Hit us with it.
I don't think that the love story should have been as prominent.
Overall, or
overall?
Okay.
Overall.
Okay.
Interesting.
Overall,
I'm curious on. Well, I get it, but I'm curious on your thoughts on why you think.
Yeah, I felt like same thing with this going into this. I liked how it started. I felt like, I also was under that impression where I thought it was like, okay, we're coming into this like this, and he's already has like recognition and everything. And once I realized that this was really to do with the government at the time and really the state of Jamaica, I don't know. I felt like, okay, like, because I was going into this wanting it to be a biopic on Bob. And that's when I realized this is not a biopic on Bob. This is a biopic on Bob's influence on the time happening at this point. And I felt like the relationship story was like, it was nice to see, and at times it benefited that other story, but that was such a crucial thing to Bob's story, and I felt like at times they honed into that aspect too much, where like you would want to see more about Bob. That, not that I know that much about Bob Marley, but like I just felt like with everything that they were trying to do, being that it was a lot, I felt like that area fell short for me, and that is where they could have backtracked a little bit and just focused on that.
I agree with what you're saying, because so I think with the metaphor of like the circle and his father was, then they weren't able to finish that story because they were so focused on his marriage, versus if they had not focused so much on the love story and instead they just showed it a little bit, then they could have finished that line of his father, because I felt like they were trying to make it seem like he had like, he always thought of who his father was, and like that sprinkling of like, he can't let this go until he knows. But like, is that needed also to tell his story? I get it. It's a fact of like, he never really knew who his dad was. Of course, that makes somebody who they are. But we don't need to be like reminded of that every 10 minutes. Or if you want to focus the story on that, and like, let it be him troubled throughout his whole life and like how that affected him. But I feel like that's not his his memory, right?
It's not. I think it's also because it's sprinkled in such a weird way. So they show it through through all the imagery through the Ring of Fire, and then he has the one line when he goes in towards the end of the movie when he has cancer. When you find out that he has cancer, and he talks about how his father was a white man that just like left. When he asks about his lineage and like, does he know if any people had anything? And that's like a throwaway line, sort of, that is just like delivered, and then it's like never, like his father's never really talked about throughout the whole movie.
Yeah, but he's shown in multiple times.
Exactly, but again, it comes sprinkled in these very weird contexts, and that's why it's like, if you're going to do that, then shouldn't you have something prominent? If that's what you want to focus on, shouldn't you have him speak on it at some point? Right?
Which it connects to how many writers, because I do think that like one of the writers
probably wanted to go one direction.
One writer was like, ooh, let's focus on the love story, the marriage. Another one was like, no, the daddy issues. And then another one was like, no, let's do music all the way. And then they were like, let's do it all.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
that's so true. That's so true. I don't know. I can see what you're saying too, and I want to pose that question that I had for you guys earlier again too, because so much of what I feel like. So the other thing is that there was a documentary that came out in 2012. Did you see it? Because I haven't seen it. It's just called Marley.
I haven't, but I've heard because of this a lot more.
I've heard it's incredible, and I heard that it's a really great like reflection on his life and who he was as a person, and probably gives you more of what you would want out of the movie, right? But is it that there's too much to encompass with his life and his legacy and his teachings and the way that he spoke? Not only about like, it wasn't even just about, and I respect what you just said, because though what he did was so impactful to the nation of Jamaica, what he spoke was important to everybody. And it has an impact on everybody. And it's a legacy that everybody takes, like his teachings and things that he said, to heart and live through the spirituality of the way that he spoke. And I'm curious on your guys' thoughts. Like, is his aura too big to try to do a story like this? Or do you think that, like, if they were going to do it, how do you think you would have shaped it? Because it is interesting. Like, I agree with what you're saying. It's hard because his kids are also involved in this production, which is a major part of it, because you're never going to get you're not going to get the full revealing of other things. Like, even the infidelity that is very weirdly hinted at and shown on screen happens in very quick edits. It happens in throwaway lines not throwaway lines of dialogue, but just dialogue that comes out of nowhere. And it's like, now you're going to address this, even though you showed us that Bob was basically sleeping with other women without showing that. Like, and then it gets redirected at Rita, that she's having an affair, and that's an interesting approach, because it's like,
Go, Michael.
No, go ahead,
What
go
do you have
ahead,
to say?
because-
So that is stuff that is information I do know about. Obviously, the Bob and Rita in real life. I know that they actually had like an open relationship, and so like,
Wow, I didn't know that.
And so it was like they had he had other kids with other women, and that was just like a normal thing. What's it called? But the way they did it, they made it seem like
They didn't even touch that.
right. They like made it seem like these are just like messed up individuals kind of doing their things, sort of. But no, like they were full agreement. Like, no, we're gonna be happily do our things and still come together. And so I thought that was so dumb. What was the other thing you had asked? I'm sorry. You had asked
just like his
that.
legacy in general.
That's right.
Do you think it's too big?
Yeah.
That's right. I honestly, I do think that everything that has to do with Bob and his legacy, yes, I do. I didn't know that much, to be honest. Like, I knew obviously like the family portion was a big part, the music portion, the political portion. I knew that these were all things that were big portions and big parts of Bob's life. I just didn't realize that it was that big that I would need to think each one would need its own movie, to be honest. And that's how I'm feeling after this. I feel like if I was to have gone into this, I would have solely made this like honestly, kind of how you said, like how if he was like young and going into this, maybe not young.
No, but like
you know what I'm saying? Like I would have told like a just more like generic, homely sort of like him being in the streets of Jamaica and you seeing that sort of rise. I wanted one a little bit more of the Jamaican culture in this. I felt like they did a good job displaying that, but
they don't spend a lot of the movie in Jamaica either, which is a very interesting choice for literally the icon of Jamaica still to this day, decades after he's passed away. They only spend the first 25-30 minutes there, and then the last 15 minutes?
Yeah.
That's crazy. The rest of the movie is globetrotting, which I get if that was the point of like, and it's also interesting that they only focus on Exodus, like even though the album was revolutionary. And I worry that they tried to make something that was very palatable for like a casual audience. And then that's why they throw in the music, because obviously I don't know anyone that doesn't like Bob Marley's music.
Well, yeah, that's why I think that's why I said I think everybody will have a good time watching this. I think the people that will have issues with it are the diehard fans that are like, he deserved more than just what they put together.
Yeah.
I think if you don't really know his story, you'll be like, oh, wow, I learned some things about Bob Marley. Interesting. But yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, they really weren't in Jamaica that much. And also, like, I would have liked to have seen more of like how he got into the band and like his first band.
When like, oh, you mean when they were
When they were in the recording session.
Yeah.
That was such a great moment.
That was my favorite flashback scene.
I loved it. When all of a sudden they're about to get kicked out and they do that beautiful song that's like amazing, and you're like, yes, okay, this is the beginning of him. And then they cut to him in like London, and you're like, okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And I was just that's one thing I do feel like they did a little bit of justice. I felt like the music and the way they incorporated the music into this, I enjoyed.
I did too.
Yeah, and for sure, I feel similarly.
And but yeah, likewise, I felt like again, like I recently was just in Jamaica. I know you also went to Jamaica recently, yeah. And so while there, that's when I realized just the impact that he made just in the streets of Jamaica. Like they like worship that guy. And so like, I don't know, I felt like it would have been good and important to see that impact globally that he had. Maybe if they even touched on that in like the later half of the movie, you know, in some way. But like, yeah, no, I felt like we needed more of just like Bob in the streets of Jamaica showing that true impact that he had and the rise with this music, and we were stripped of that.
Yeah, I agree, because as much as he impacted the world, he's stuck with Jamaica. Like he is, when you go there, that's all you hear, that's all that you see. And so I think that maybe they deserved a little bit more time of his presence there. They also spent so much time watching him play soccer.
I kind of
like
liked
randomly
it.
though.
I kind of liked it.
Really?
I liked that it showed him as like a human being.
It was probably
like that was what like centered him always. Like it always be. I mean, he was such a chill person, at least based on what people could see of him, right? Mm-hmm. But there was always so much more in his head and things that he was dealing with, and like that felt like one of the only things that was singular to him. Like he always brought himself back to like how he was as a kid playing soccer. I don't know that I like that aspect of it, but I do understand there was like
I feel
a lot
like,
of it.
Yeah, between the soccer and the dream sequence of the fire circle, I feel like they could have put a lot of other things in there.
Yeah.
They didn't need to have the multiple soccer games going on.
You know what bothers me now
What?
that you're saying what you guys are saying now too in terms of the Jamaica thing? Not only is he like very emblematic of what that nation like worships, but the way that they portray it in the script and in this movie, it's basically like he's abandoning Jamaica, which is fucked up. Which I didn't even think about until right now. Like he spends because
I don't know if he's abandoning.
He's
though.
not. He's trying to evade.
Because
Like,
we're
shot.
in spoilers.
We're in
he got
spoilers,
shot,
yes.
and
He gets
so
shot towards the beginning of the
he's
movie.
scared of going back.
But again, like, why do you focus so much on if so much of his life was spent in Jamaica? Why do you focus so heavily? Like, I would say 65% of the movie is not in Jamaica. Maybe more. Maybe 70%.
Maybe. I don't know though, because all the flashbacks are in Jamaica.
Yeah, I guess. But that's really about him.
And they're also flashbacks. You really do have a flashback.
It's true. I mean, like again, like I think the scene in the recording studio is a good scene of kind of showcasing what it was like then, because like there's like a gangster coming out with like a gun to their head. They're like, we just want to record, and he's like, all right, you got like 10 minutes. And it's like, oh shit, that was what he was living in. You know, like that was how he was raised, and that was what for people to get opportunity at that point. That's what you had to do. Like you were putting your life on the line literally just to try to like sell your soul for music, which was very interesting. But the narrative and the way that they decide to piece together all these different patches of his life feels so all over the place that it's not jarring in a way that like you completely throws you out of the movie, but there are times like you said, like where you'll really get engulfed in a scene and then they'll make a cut and you're like, why did they like hold on that a little more? Or like if you're going to show something important, don't put it in like a 2-second scene. Like some of the scenes that's why I think, and I understand your perspective too with the relationship, but I felt like some of the best scenes were with the relationship, and that's why I feel like I wanted more of that, because it was the best parts to me. But the music part of it too, like when they first hear the score of the movie Exodus, that whole scene is awesome.
When they're building the song?
Where they start to put everything together, I'm like, that's awesome. You get to see how Bob Marley constructs a fucking song. You know how awesome that is? Like, and how like, again, like emblematic to who he was as a creative entity. Like he was so much more than that. And I don't know, it's weird because the movie, I come out of it with so many different emotions, because there are parts I really, really enjoy about it, but there's not enough there for me to be like, oh, this is like exactly what I wanted out of the movie, because it's totally not.
Well, I think it's hard because from what it's sounding like is that there's two ways that they could have gone with this, focusing fully on like his music and his career and how he started and then how he became, or you could focus in on the behind the scenes and his personal life and his marriage, his open relationship, his father. And so like, do you guys wish that they had focused more on his overall career and how he became like the entity that he is? Or do you wish that they had kind of been like, all right, push the like album making on the backside a little bit more and show us who he really was kind of behind closed doors?
Do you have a response?
Yeah, I feel like they should have honed in on the behind closed doors.
Mhm.
I do, just because also I didn't see that documentary that you brought up, but like hearing it, that was a success, and I'm pretty sure they covered a lot of the bigger things that were happening, the political, his career sort of stuff. I felt like even if they made another sort of documentary, like that, just kind of to come out around this sort of same time, so that could then focus on that sort of. I don't mean like not that they would want to draw attention to another project,
Yeah.
but like at least then with that you could have then let more of like those real moments, like that involve like worldly sort of things, kind of just play out and like a real sort of project, and then have this strictly just be let's explore his love life, let's see his dad, let's see his kids a little bit, let's see, because they are
Dude,
still,
his kids are not in the movie,
they're
which
not,
is so interesting
Yeah.
to me.
and they're like a crucial, like today are still making so much noise, like music, like film, everything. So it's like I definitely feel like they should have honed in on that behind the scenes and then saved that career push for another project.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give you an answer that you're going to hate.
Okay.
I want this movie to be way longer, and that's where I would be, because the movie comes in under 2 hours, and I do feel like, but I can understand the business side of it, but I hate that, where they're like, all right, we need to make a profitable movie that is commercial, and it needs to come in under 2 hours because that's, again, palatable for the audience, and we need to squeeze in as much music as we can in that time, even if it's not shown through performance. And a lot of it is, but there are so many things that feel like we didn't even get to the point that he also, there's a major influence throughout the whole entire movie, and full scenes dedicated to his like faith in Rastafarian. Like they say it 800 times in the movie. It's very obvious that means a lot to him, and it means a lot to his family, and it means a lot to his faith, and a lot to his relationship with his wife. And it's so the part of the reason I think the movie has the issues that it has is because there's not enough time to breathe with a lot of it. Now, you can argue the fact that you could make like a TV series, but I personally don't love the format of trying to do a story about one person over a long, because then you run the risk of just like where do you make cuts? Like where do you, because that's the thing with television, like where do you cut an episode off? So he gets shot at the end of one episode, and that's like, oh, okay, that's a weird fucking way to end an episode, that you're gonna do a Bob Marley show and then he gets shot, because that would be the end of part one. That, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, you could expand more, but if I was making this movie, I would have made it a 2 hour and 20-minute movie, because I felt like they would have at least felt better where they could have maybe broken it up into cleaner chunks, and they could have explored a lot of things. Maybe they could have cut one part of it out, because it's obvious that they try to focus on way too much at the exact same time during this movie. By the way, his cancer diagnosis is like that, which is also crazy to me, because it's a major fucking part of his story, because he died at 36. And they're just like, oh, he stubbed his toe, which I also never knew, by the way. Like, did you know that? Because I never knew that. That was like how he found out that he had fucking cancer.
Yeah, I knew that only because there's like some like giant conspiracy behind that, and obviously they aren't going to touch that.
Tell me about this. I don't know this
we're deep
conspiracy.
diving into
What is
conspiracy
this
theories on the
conspiracy
Cinema
theory?
Wave podcast.
Yes, so apparently people believe that the government put something in his shoe.
Oh.
There was like a thing that you could like do essentially back then, and they believed that it was like something where when he put his shoe in, he like cut his foot, and like that like,
gave him whatever was the like, because it's not like a known, or not a known.
It was a rare type of
yes,
cancer.
thank you.
Yeah.
And so, and it
Sounds like the Easy theory.
Yeah, it's very similar to that, and it's like, I don't know, especially with like the political side and everything. That's why people kind of believe it more. That's why, like, okay, government did this because he was making so much of a noise. I don't know everything. I probably wasn't the one to bring that conspiracy. Like, I don't know everything about it.
Now I'm gonna be up all night.
Now we're gonna do a true crime Bob Marley episode on Culture Wave.
Well, I also think okay, so like we're talking about behind the scenes or like his professional aspect. I think maybe having his family so involved in this hindered going behind the scenes, because maybe they don't want to show some of the not bad stuff, but maybe they don't want to have I think they want to keep his memory in a positive light, which absolutely it should. But for me, I didn't know anything about this like other woman relationship. Like I didn't even really make the connection that he was sleeping with other people until that big fight between them. And then when you're saying that they had an open relationship, that completely was out of the film.
Yeah,
so
they have those weird moments like we talked about. There's a scene where he's in a phone booth. It's a very
and you see her creeping.
It's a very weird and interesting editing choice. He's in the phone booth on the phone with Rita, saying that he wants her to come to London. Meanwhile, there's like a streetwalker like that's on the street like looking at him, and you can see her in the background of the shot, and then they cut to like one shot of her like looking at him like angrily, and then it cuts back to the phone booth and you never see her again. And it's like, that's fucking weird. It's obvious that she's lurking, and it's obvious that like she's waiting for him to get out because she knows who he is or whatever. It's not like something
it's not obvious that it's like, oh, they're sleeping together.
No, but like that's what they're trying to get across.
I didn't get it.
Well, but then there's the other then there's the other scene where they go through the montage where Exodus is climbing the charts, and he's getting really like he's getting famous everywhere, and he's getting attention from people, and he's going to all these parties and doing things that he never used to do when he was in Jamaica. And they show very, very quick editing, but they show him at a party taking a picture with a model, like she's like a Miss America model or something. She's wearing like a sash, and he has his arm around her, and then it cuts to another image, and then the next image you see, it's a knock. Like, it's a knock not in that scene, and then it's Bob opening the door, and it's just her in the doorway. Which is also, like, probably implying that something happened. Why else would you include that shot? But it's weird that that's the way that they decided to show it. But it makes sense, again, with the family being in it.
Maybe they were like, we don't want this to be the point of the movie. That people walk away with is, like, that he... Or they like hadn't. Maybe they just were like, let's keep that out of it because we don't want it to be highlighted. Let's focus on what his message was. Because at the end of the day, that is what his family wants the world to take away, is what he was preaching and what he was singing about. Not necessarily the drama behind closed doors.
Yeah, I think the big problem is that when you try to focus on so much, you come away with like a feeling of like very little. And like stylistically, they didn't make a choice. They decided to put everything in it. And it leaves you feeling like they don't even have a real perspective on how they want to tell a story. And with filmmaking, so much of it is singular in like your vision as a director and as like writers. You want to be able to like tell any version of a story. Like there's like, for example, Bohemian Rhapsody is another example of something like this where they try to squeeze a lot in. Like and they do that. They manage to do that. Something like the upcoming movie with Bob Dylan, where Timothée Chalamet is playing Bob Dylan, that focuses on him going to meet Pete Seeger and recording a song. That's going to be a very singular version of a story about Bob Dylan. You know what I mean? Like you're making an active choice as a director to focus on one part, because the other thing is that these artists, I get it. They have incredible lives, incredible things that they've done over a number of years. But if you are going to do that, then why wouldn't you show everything and then try to squeeze in all these nuances of their personal life and relationships with their fathers and like you said, the political intrigue, and then not even take the time to really dive into it? You're like literally just throwing things at the wall to see, oh, maybe someone will like this part of it. Maybe somebody will like this part of it. And maybe someone will like this part of it. It's like you want the movie as a collective to be embraced and felt on a deeper level, because that's what makes you feel the movie. Like, that's my biggest takeaway with it. Is like, for someone that is such a larger than life presence, I didn't feel that at all with this movie. And I love his music, and I'll watch the movie again because I enjoy sitting down and listening to the music, and I enjoyed Kingsley's performance, and I loved Lashana in the movie. But there's so much here where it's like, I would skip scenes. Like if I had the choice, I would skip scenes and just go to the music, which is not the point of what you want to get. I want this to be a character study on fucking Bob Marley. And it didn't feel that way to me. I don't know. Sorry, I ranted a little bit.
It's okay. I will say though, I thought that I liked the ending. Like how the conversation between them two, when he like tells her like, I do have cancer, and like the line that stuck with me was when she was like, sometimes the messenger has to become the message. And then it just ended up rolling into like him, them coming back to Jamaica. Like, I feel like the way that they ended it for me was a beautiful message of him being like content with himself, knowing that at the end of the day, like he has put out good, positive messages, and that's all that you can really do at the end of the day. So I don't know. The ending for me, I felt like it hit a good note.
I agree, but that I feel like that's like what they were going for, and I don't like that. Like they went for they're like, let's just throw something that's gonna make you feel really good at the end. And it's like,
but it's a Bob Marley movie.
No,
you want to feel good at the end.
I agree with you. But if that's the way you're gonna go, then lean into that the whole movie. Don't give us these breadcrumbs of him. But I get it. Like, you want conflict. You always need conflict.
You do, because I think if they had gone with good vibes, like the whole time, it would have been a little bit of a snooze fest.
I know that for myself, the ending, I mean, like, I do think that it was nice to see like a happy, upbeat, sort of happier, I can't say happy, but happier ending. What's it called? But I don't know, I guess coming off of what we had already seen in like the mashup of everything, to me it just felt like it was like it was just weird. Like it kind of just like it was like a weird tornado of stuff and then an ending. That's what it felt like. So like it didn't really hit as hard to me because
Did you guys want to see him die like fully?
No, I'm not saying that either, but I do echo what Michael just said, because it doesn't give you enough time to even appreciate the ending for how they craft it well at the end, because they jump so much.
No, I agree.
So many different things.
Agree. I did enjoy the ending though. I thought it was.
I think that's fair.
It made me go like, oh.
I have a question for you guys, because I touched on it a little bit, but the music and the choice that they made to have him sing sometimes.
Oh yeah. We didn't talk about this. I want to hear Michael's thoughts on that.
So Michael's our musical extraordinaire. So I'm curious on your thoughts.
I don't think it's a smart. I don't think it's a smart thing to do ever in a movie, to be honest.
To have him really sing, or to do
the flip.
To do the flip. I think it's smart in the event to have the actor really sing if they can pull it off. That's like a major point of it, and I guess a lot of that goes into the casting. Again, I don't know, that's out of my control. But I know that it can be very contrasting at times, and easy to tell, for me at least, just because I feel like with these biopics, especially a music artist biopic, like we all know these artists and their songs and their voice, you know what I'm saying? And so it's like, I don't know, I feel like there's a weird boundary where I appreciate the realness of that sort of being used in a film, but it can be very contrasting. And this time I don't think it was like terrible.
So you didn't like the scene that I liked, is what you're saying? Which is fine.
Which one?
The scene where he's actually singing. I think he only actually sings twice, but the one that stood out to me is when he's singing to his wife.
It wasn't terrible. It wasn't, but to me it was definitely noticeable that it was like a difference. But again, I don't know how much of that really goes into just like being so in tune with these artists' real voices and music and stuff like that, and just being able to tell. I don't know. But again, I do appreciate an artist being able to do that, just because I feel like that is an important part of a biopic. They should be able to, you know, vocally, vocally, maybe not even fully sound like them, but they should be able to hold a tune. You know what I'm saying? Like in the same way that artist may. So 50-50.
I have a question though too, because I'm actually not sure.
Yeah.
When he does Redemption Song acoustically, is that the studio track with everything stripped, or was that him?
I think it was him,
because I actually thought he sounded really good in that scene, but maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know, because again, I don't think he sounded bad at all. Like I don't think he sounded bad.
Yeah.
I just can at times can hear differences, and that for me can take me out of it. I don't know if that would be like a striking sort of thing, and so like I know that like if you do it right, it could like completely like pass and get by.
Yeah.
But again, it wasn't like a striking. I'm trying to think of examples,
but
where
it does stand out when they're basically lip syncing. Like, it didn't stick out always for me, but there were definitely scenes in the movie where I mean, and again, I know his music very well, so maybe I'm the wrong person to be asking, but it's like there were certain scenes where I'm just like, he would hold the note longer. It's like the way like you're doing it is not matching with the studio track, and it's noticeable. Yeah. But that's a hard fucking thing to do.
Well,
how did you feel about it?
I mean, I think that they should have just picked one, and if they're gonna have him sing, they'd have to do less music, because I think it's too hard for him to learn like all of that and be right on cue. Like, I think of like one of the biopics I grew up watching was like Walk the Line with Joaquin Phoenix and Reese Witherspoon. And they actually sang like the songs and they learned how to play the instruments, but they did way less music because of it. Like, they only did a couple live performances. And so for me, then they would have done less music if he had sung less songs. But then if you want to keep all this music, just do the tracks and let him lip sing. Like, let him be good at lip singing.
Yeah.
I mean, real artists do it in person anyways in their show. So like, why? Who cares?
That is so true.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, and there's an example that I always kind of like go back to, and it's a funny example, but it's an early example for me. In the first High School Musical movie.
For sure.
Yeah. Zac Efron isn't actually singing.
Yep.
It's Drew Seeley, but they like blend their vocals, and it's in a way where it passes. Like, I remember like it worked at a time. I genuinely thought Zac Efron could sing, and he can hold a tone. Like he can sing, but that wasn't his voice.
Yeah.
And so like there is a blending technique that you can get down right in terms of having it be sometimes even in the same sort of performance on screen, where like you could blend between it, and that kind of creates then more of a natural, that real life sort of acting voice mixed with this still tone and musically sounding how it would. I know that it's definitely doable, and High School Musical, I felt like
High School Musical did it right.
They did it.
You know what movie I think also did that? What's the J-Lo? Selena.
Yeah.
I think that I'm pretty sure I could be wrong on this, but I'm like 90% sure that she sang, especially in the studio ones, but then they dubbed over to like blend them together, because J-Lo's not the best singer. She can hit a note, but like she's not going to sound like Selena. I mean, that's like a voice that you can't really replicate at the end of the day. Yeah. And so I think that they blended because they wanted her to have the mouth placement be the same when they were doing close-ups. So, I mean, maybe they should have just spent more time on it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I get weird with it because there's the pushback of like, there are examples of people. I always think about A Star Is Born and how Bradley Cooper like taught himself how to do so much shit.
But those are original songs.
No, I completely understand what you're saying.
That's hard, like to replicate perfectly.
But then Austin
hard.
Butler also did Elvis, and I thought he sounded great as Elvis.
Yeah, but now he's got PTSD on his voice.
Now his voice is fucked forever. But it's like there's that, and we talked about this with Wonka, which ironically we have the same crew. But Wonka, like, we were like, Chalamet, figure it the fuck out.
He should have done one song. Too many songs.
But now for the Bob Dylan movie, he's been working with the same vocal coach that Austin worked with on Elvis. So he's working on trying to sound like Bob Dylan, which is it's a tough fucking task because Bob Dylan has a very unique voice. We'll have to see how that goes. But my point is, like, you can do it in a way in which you are working that way. Or if you're the studio, as much as I love Kingsley, and I thought he did a really good job, find somebody else. Like, they're making a Michael Jackson movie. Okay? When that movie comes out, it's going to be highly fucking controversial for a number of reasons. We don't have to get into that right now. But his nephew is playing Michael, and Jafar Jackson is an incredible fucking dancer. He sounds just like his uncle does, and he's never acted before. You can go that route. You surround him with fantastic actors like Regina Hall, like Coleman Domingo, like Miles Teller, all these people that are going to be in this movie. Why don't you go that route then? If like, you know what I mean? And I do get it because Bob Marley has such a distinct voice. But to me, it's similar where it's like, I don't know what the studio was going for here. Were you going for commercial, but then you bring in prestige actors, and then you try to focus on really personal moments, but then you decide it's about the music? The whole structure of the movie pisses me off, frankly.
But now you kind of brought up a good point before, as far as like just like the stories that these projects are taking on. Like, I guess we kind of forget that like these are like some of the biggest artists of all time, and like their lives have been fully on display for all of us their entire life. And so I guess then you kind of get into that weird territory of like, is it kind of just personal preference what we all think should be displayed, because we've all kind of seen it and had questions and things like that. And so then it also kind of then makes me question, will biopics ever really be then kind of like, I think they'll always be successful, don't get me wrong, but will they always be kind of overlooked or controversial simply because there's so much personal preference on the artist themselves that they're trying to now I am really kind of rethinking just that
I think genre. So I think that they're always going to have an audience of somebody that hated it and somebody that really loved it, because think about it, like Bob Marley, somebody could be like, oh, I was super inspired by his real life and the things that he went through, versus other people are like, oh, I was inspired by his music. So then one person is going to want to see his story and another person's going to want to hear all about the music. So right there, you already have differing opinions. So I just think biopics, you just have to stick to the real person's life and make it as true and honest as possible, and then let the audience take it for what they will. But I do think they should have picked one, like recordings or have him sing live. Doing the both, it's like, oof, what, he couldn't hit a note at one point, and so then you were like, oh, let's just have the recording do it.
Oh my God. All right. Should we go to scores?
I don't have any other thoughts. So
my score got lower as I started talking.
Did it?
Yeah.
Wow. I enjoyed this movie.
I did. I enjoyed it too. It's just like there's something about the narrative that just really bothers me.
It just bothered you.
And Bohemian Rhapsody, I feel similarly about. Like, that movie didn't age well for me. Like, I've seen it 3 times now, and that's another movie where the editing is just fucking. Whew, editing is really bad for that movie. I don't think this is a bad movie. I was entertained while watching it. I, again, love his music. I thought Kingsley did a good job. We didn't focus so much on Lashana's performance, but I thought she really was fantastic in the movie. I'm going to go 6.5. So I didn't go that much lower. I was going to give it a 7 initially, but I'm going to go 6.5.
I'm going to do a 7.5.
Okay. This is like one of the first times I feel like you're like higher than I am.
Probably. I enjoyed it. I had a great time watching this movie. Okay. I think plot points, they should have kicked a few writers out the room, but
I'm curious what that first script looked like. So badly.
It probably was a long,
Terrence Winter too. Like I would love to see the framework of what they initially wanted to do.
I want to know who wanted the dad in there so badly. Like who? Because I felt like it could have just been like, I didn't know who my father was. Okay, great. Move on with life. Like somebody though was like, it's been 10 minutes. We need to show that ring of fire, guys. What is the significance?
Also, quick question.
Yeah.
So they show the white guy on the horse the whole movie. You don't even get a look at his face. The first time you get the person turning around, it's not him. It's somebody else. Is that, or is that not Ziggy Marley on the fucking horse? Did you not like you guys realize that, right?
No.
So at the end of the movie, when the person turns around, it is a black man with a beard that's dressed up like the white guy, but it's a black guy, and it looks a lot like Ziggy Marley. Which I'm also like, did Ziggy just go in the movie just to be in the movie?
Oh, I don't know. It was I was more kind of like, not this again.
This is like, I don't care.
No, I literally was. I think at that point when I saw that the Ring of Fire was back again, I was like, what are we doing? And I just like looked at Tyler and I was like, this again?
Oh my God.
They showed it too many times. Anyways, Michael, what was your score?
I'm going to give it, I think I'm going to give it a 6.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
well, you did say it was ass. So.
I was. I did use that term. I was gonna give it a 5. But at times the music kind of bumped it up.
Of
for me.
course, because
Yes.
it was like a scene that you were not vibing with, and then all of a sudden he started singing, and you were like, damn.
Right, that's
Yeah.
right. Like,
I want to watch the documentary now.
Yeah.
I heard
feel
it's very good.
Yeah, I've heard it's very good too. All right, that is our spoiler talk and review and discussion on the film Bob Marley, One Love. It's in theaters right now. You guys can see it. Like I said, it's making a lot of money right now. It's doing really well. The audience score is very high for this movie on Rotten Tomatoes. It's at 92%. The critic score is a bit lower. It's actually at 46%, which is lower than all of us. So a lot of people aren't enjoying the movie in terms of critics, but a lot of the casual movie-going audiences are enjoying it, which it's good to see movies like this thrive because at the same time, it's bringing together these great stories about these great people. But let us know in the comments what you guys thought about Bob Marley, One Love. Did you guys enjoy the movie? Did you guys not enjoy the movie? What were the aspects of this scattered sort of story that you guys enjoyed? What were some of the things you didn't like? If you guys can, please give this video a like. We are the Culture Wave Media Network. You guys could also subscribe to our channel. We also are on social media. We're at Cinema Wave Media on Instagram, as well as on TikTok, Facebook, and Threads. We're also at _Culture Wave Media on Instagram and at Jersey's Finest Pod on Instagram as well. Just signing off, I am Darian Scalamoni.
I am Liz Seiko.
And I'm Michael Peniston.
And we'll see you guys next time.